Evelyn to Philip, October 1st, 1944. My dearest one, I started a V-mail to you yesterday but never did finish. Instead, I tore it up and am sending this along to cover September 30th and today. Yesterday was a hectic one for me, as you shall learn presently. To begin with, I worked my usual 4 hours on Saturday morning. After work, I headed straight home and did a bit of cleaning. I stayed at my mother's with Adele the rest of the afternoon as it was raining out. Adele had dinner there. Then the sun came out for a little while, so I took her out. We stopped at Faye's and then Betty's. Betty has returned to work once more. I returned to the house and had my dinner while Natalie, who had come along with me, played with Adele. Natalie, by the way, paid your daughter a lovely compliment. Nat says Adele is the most brilliant kid she knows, that she understands everything much better than any other kid she knows. Adele shows a keen interest in everything, while most kids just nod and pass up the subject. After dinner, I called Dot, fully intending to see her that evening. The weather was bad again, and I was undecided. Dot told me that her sister-in-law has a stroller for sale for $8, and perhaps I would be interested. Well, to make a long story short, I went out to see Dot. Adele was asleep by 8:15. Goldie and Mom went to the movies to see Double Indemnity, which they both liked very much, while Harry stayed in. Page 2. I called Anne just before I left, as she hadn't heard from Tony for over 2 weeks. There was a reason. He is now in Belgium. From England to France to Belgium in only 8 weeks. That's traveling. I stopped at Faye's before catching the subway, and it was a good thing I did, for her mother and uncle were going into the center of town by car, so I got a ride to 15th and Market. I caught the L out to Dot's and got there about 9:15. Instead of looking at the stroller as I had intended, we decided to take in a movie, seeing Step Lively at the Mayfair with Frank Sinatra, George Murphy, and Gloria DeHaven. That Gloria DeHaven is really something lovely. What I mean lovely, and I'm sure you've noticed her. Frankie leaves me positively frigid, and I think his looks are revolting. He does have a pleasant voice, and I like to listen to him. The picture made good entertainment, and I laughed heartily many times. That plus the other musicals I've seen lately have been especially good for what ails me. I sure do get the blues often. When the movie was over, about 11:15, we went to Dot's grandmother and grandfather's apartment, across the street from her mother's house, where I slept with Adele, and had coffee and cake. Dot's Uncle Jack, who is a New Yorker and an Arthur Murray instructor, was in, and naturally was a most interesting guest. Later in the evening, about 11:45, we went over to Dot's, where she danced with her Uncle Jack. I jitterbugged 2 numbers with him, if I may say so. I enjoy dancing so much and do so little of it. Someday, honey. I left Dot's at 12:45 and arrived at Broad and Allegheny in good time. There I waited, along with another girl, for about 40 minutes, but still no bus. A young fellow approached me and tried to make time with me. There were several other girls waiting for a trolley, but he had to pick on me. He noticed my rings and kept telling me not to worry about my husband, whom he guessed was overseas or in the army, that everything would be all right someday. I was about to make for the subway and catch another train up to Logan. Page 3, stop, when the girl beside me asked me to go half with her and take a cab. I readily agreed, and we ran like hell for a passing empty cab. When we reached 9th and Rockland, and I tried to pay my share of the ride, she stoutly refused and all but threw me out of the cab so that I wouldn't pay. Well, baby, I was never so glad to get home. I particularly hate to make the trip out to Dot's alone, and since I never can leave the house much before 8, I dislike going altogether. But if I'm to see her at all, I must go out once in a while, even though I do get there late. After all, I was only there a scant 3 hours. I had a swell time, as I always do when I visit Dot. She promised me that she'll try her best to come here with Harold next week. She gave me several snaps of Harold and Snuff that are very nice. She sent you some, too. I found Adele in a pool of sissy almost up to her ears. I changed her completely and hit the hay. A short while later she awoke again and was soaked. This time I took off her wet sleeper bottoms and took her into bed with me, for I felt that she was through wetting. Besides, it was freezing last night, and the cold may have been responsible for her wetting so much. She fell asleep, and so she spent a good 2 hours sleeping with me. At least she stays covered when she sleeps with me. This morning I learned that Cy had come in about 2 this morning, and is in till 6 this evening. Phil, he looks so good, I just can't tell you how well. His ship, the USS New York, not New Yorker, is due to embark November 2nd, and naturally it will head for the Pacific. He doesn't think the ship will have heavy duty, since he says it's one of, page 4, the oldest ships in the Navy. Adele recognized him instantaneously and did all her tricks for him. I especially like this. I snap into position and raise my hand to salute, saying, "Salute, Daddy," drawing out the last syllable of salute. She immediately follows, putting her hand to her head and saying, "Alut, Daddy." I dropped something this morning and she told me to find it. When asked how old she is, she says 2. Sometimes she slips and says 4. Ruth is working at the 5 and 10 again and brings her mother goose books. Adele can sit for hours and point to the various subjects. It's very educating, too. Adele knows how to make the sounds of many animals, like the dog, cat, cow, and sheep. She imitates a train, too. I love the way she says, "Top it," for stop it. She sounds like a Frenchie. She tries to say every word she hears, and 9 times out of 10, it's correct. The weather today is positively gorgeous, and it always makes me wish for you that much more. I was up bright and early and was out with Adele from 9:30 to 11:30. Adele had lunch at my mother's, and now she is sleeping. I'm going to end this very shortly, as I want to eat my lunch and catch a cat nap before she awakes. I forgot to mention that the $100 bond came in the mail yesterday. It came almost to the date you said it would, 6 weeks. Ruth just walked in announcing that she has a roll of film, so I hope we'll get some nice snaps of Adele with Seymour for you. Well, baby mine, I close once more with my usual I love you, Phil, and I'm always your Ev. P.S. I never did see the stroller. Philip to Evelyn, 1st October 1944. Dearest Ev, received your V-mail of 22nd September yesterday afternoon, but was kept so busy that I didn't find the time to answer it until now. Today is Sunday, but from the amount of work I put out this morning, you'd never guess it. Just a while ago, I received Snuff's letter and answered it immediately. Now to answer yours. Your discovery that we think about the same things at the same time may come as a revelation to you, but I have been aware of it for some time and had grown more or less inclined to take the phenomenon for granted. After all, it's not very surprising when you consider that our hopes and thoughts and desires are centered about the same things. You say you think you've regained that lost weight. Only costs a penny to find out, sweet, and there are plenty of scales in the neighborhood. Catch? Glad you decided to get the radio repaired, honey. Wait till you see the television set we get once I get home. Don't hold your breath until then, though. Your paragraph about Adele and our bed is real cute, Chippy. But if the little vixen has any ideas about keeping me out of my own bed unless she is also invited, she'll darn soon be forced to change her prejudices. I guarantee it. However, and don't you dare tell her this, I just can't picture myself denying her her wish to sleep with us. Guess I better change. Page 2. My mind too, huh? You know, sweet, if there is any prospect that pleases my fancy more than that of holding you once more in my arms, it is that of holding both my girls in my arms at one and the same time. Just contemplating it makes me goose-pimply. You say the pumpkin loves to be loved. Lady, that's right up my alley, because if there's anything I delight in, it's giving out with the love. And believe me, I've got more than enough of that commodity to take care of the two of you. As a matter of fact, I suspect that it will take both of you to satisfy my own cravings after affection. Oh, baby, if only the waiting for that glorious day weren't so hard to take. Reading about Milt and the trials and dangers he has had to endure, I must count myself very lucky by comparison. Hope he is on his way home by now, because there's a limit to what even the toughest man can take. Haven't heard from either Ed or Limey for some time now. I'm going to write to both of them, find out where they are, and try to get a furlough so that I may spend a few days with each of them. I'm hoping, like everything, it works out that way. Tell Dot how sorry I am that I have not yet found the opportunity to write to her. Give Mom my love and tell her I'll write as soon as I get the time. My best to the Fromers and all the neighbors. My love to all the Pallers and Strongans. My dearest love to you, darling, and our very own pumpkin. Ever your Phil. This is a letter from someone named Jean to Phil. Not really sure who he is, and maybe we'll find out later. Dated around October 1st. Dear Phil, ran into your name on a list at the canteen in Norwich. It was way back in last December. I'm supposing you're still around here, and I'd like to see you sometime if you can get into Norwich. I can get into Norwich almost any evening, so write if you can meet me sometime. Or you can call me on page 2. The number is obscured by a punched hole. It looks like Beauregard, 211, extension 78. If you write, name some time. I get in about 6:45 p.m. and someplace, the Bell Hotel is good as any. How's everything at home? Milt's got a big family now, and Sam's pushing into Germany with Patton. In case you don't remember me, it has been a long time. I'm Milt's brother, Jean.